This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain, and this is an Open Line Friday. You can call me at 877-973-7425. If you text the word engage to 33777, you can come to the conference, the annual gathering in Atlanta. We take our listeners and readers and bring them together in person, hang out with me and some of the leading luminaries of the right. We'll have Governors Brian Kemp, Glenn Youngkin there as well, Doug Ducey of Arizona. We've invited Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, and Ryan Walters, the school superintendent in Oklahoma, making big gains for the right in education in Oklahoma. We've extended an invitation to them. Ron DeSantis, we're waiting to hear from. Mike Pence is going to be there as well. Dave McCormick, running for the Senate in Pennsylvania, is going to be there. Should be a great time. Text ENGAGE to 33777. Get your tickets now while you still have time. Before I get to any phone calls, those of you on the phones, be patient. I want to get something off my chest. You probably don't know the name Jonathan Cohen. Is that his name? Jonathan Cohen. Yes. That's him. He was a Crone, Jonathan Crone. That's right. Jonathan Crone was the child conservative prodigy years ago. Jonathan Crone was the child prodigy. I remember in 2009, I was at CPAC. That was one of the, I have gone to CPAC less and less over time, but I remember he was got on stage at CPAC, and he was a child prodigy. He was 13 years old, and he gave a good speech for a 13-year-old at CPAC. And he got on Fox News, and I remember I was blogging. I was writing for Red State at the time, and he came by Blogger Row and wanted to, with his mom, and wanted to chat. He was from Georgia, a very nice kid and very nice mother. And I just thought at the time, I'm not sure. He's 13 years old. He wrote a book called Defining Conservatism as a 13-year-old. And I'm reading now from Wikipedia because I don't remember it all, but it was dedicated to Ronald Reagan, William F. Buckley, and Barry Goldwater, who he said were his political heroes, along with Jim DeMint. He self-published it, a first effort. He got in touch with CPAC. He got on stage. The American Conservative Union put him on stage, and he was a nice enough kid. And his mom, who was with him, was very, very nice. But I just also remember thinking, he's 13 years old. Again, very nice guy. You will not be surprised to learn that he grew up and became a progressive. He wrote for the far left Mother Jones and for Salon. He had a big change. He announced in 2012 that he no longer considered himself a conservative, went very, very liberal on same-sex issues, on healthcare. He supported Barack Obama. Been pretty progressive, rejected social conservatism. became critical of conservatism and partisan politics and scorned right-wingers, showing the maturity of a little boy. He's come out now as bisexual on Twitter. I have nothing against Jonathan Grone. This is not a criticism of him. This is a criticism of the people who platformed him, which I don't know him well enough to know, but I suspect he might feel the same way. He was 13 years old and self-published a book on conservatism and was treated as some sort of hero. Very nice guy, but he's on the left. I think about him every time I think about Candace Owens. Candace Owens came to fame for Blexit, the black exit of the Democratic Party, named after Brexit, the British exit of the EU. And the thing about Jonathan Crone is, well, he's not crazy, even if I could kind of see where this might go, and it did. He's not nuts, and Candace Owens, I think, probably is, but she, like he, were platformed by conservatives because with him, he was a 13-year-old boy who espoused the things they wanted to hear, and she was a black female who espoused the things they wanted to hear, and so both of them got platformed. And I don't know if CPAC platformed Candace Owens, but I suspect they did, given their track record. And, of course, Candace Owens is now a ruthlessly anti-Semitic idiot. Yesterday, or day before yesterday, Candace Owens actually retweeted someone who suggested we should have never gotten into World War II, as we're all celebrating the heroes of World War II. As we're all focused on the heroes of World War II, Candace Owens retweeted somebody who wrote this: Pearl Harbor could have been avoided, and the U.S. should have never been involved in World War II. Candace Owens, of course, has also expressed her sympathies for those who maligned and misunderstood the Nazis. Candace Owens is now out telling everyone she's not really convinced of the theory that a meteor wiped out the dinosaurs. I actually know what wiped out the dinosaurs. The Jews. The Jews enslaved the dinosaurs. I mean, these days, a lot of Jewish people at the end of their name, they have Steen or Stein. Back in the day, it was Stone, like Flint Stone, and they controlled the dinosaurs and enslaved them. And ultimately, it led to the dinosaurs stopped procreating and they died out. The Jews did it. I'm sure Candace Owens believes it. I'm sure, these days it'd be Fred Flintstein, and back then it was Fred Flintstone, and they enslaved the dinosaurs and wiped them out in the development of the Jewish space lasers. I guarantee you it was the Jews. Candace Owens would buy this theory 1,000,000,000%, as opposed to the meteor that she's skeptical about. And yet the right was willing to, and some people on the right still want to platform her and give her the benefit of the doubt. It's just a misunderstanding. Maybe instead we should stop platforming people on the right who have no real experience. There's no way to test their experience, their tried and true meaning of whether or not they have lived an experience that certifies them as some person we should listen to. Some of you may think, what on earth, why should we listen to you, Erickson? You don't have to listen to me. I did get started as a college Republican, became a conservative, built the leading, most influential center-right blog on Capitol Hill, was considered an influential conservative at one point, the most influential conservative in America you never heard of. I ran for office as a conservative, even tried to privatize my police department in my town. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to look at my life experience and say this is someone I should listen to. Guest hosted for Rush Limbaugh and Herman Cain and Neil Bortz and have my own show now. But, you may say I could go wobbly, and I could. So I had a off-the-books Bible study for a long time at my church, called ourselves the Dead Theologians Society. You were only allowed to read dead theologians because otherwise they could wind up like Rob Bell. I actually got a note last year from a friend of mine. Maybe I shouldn't say this on radio. He was very upset about Tim Keller's death, but he said, the bright side, we can read him in Bible study now. We never read living theologians because they can always go off the reservation at some point in their life. Candace Owens told people what they wanted to hear, and so they listened to her for what she wanted to hear, and she got platformed by leading sites on the right who wanted the traffic she could generate, and she is nothing but a dumb anti-Semite. She's not even a smart anti-Semite. I mean, no, I don't think most anti-Semites are smart, but there are some more crafty than others, and she's not. She's just a dumb person who said outlandish things, but when people liked them on the right, she gave attention and got attention. And she's not alone. I mean, there's that C.J. Pearson kid who ran for office in Georgia. He was a Bernie Sanders guy, turned into a Trump kid, lost his election. He's not exactly a conservative. And yet he was a young black kid in Georgia. And so conservatives in Georgia wrapped their arms around him. He's one of our own. Look how diverse we are. No, he was a Bernie Sanders supporter who decided to embrace Donald Trump and said all the things to be embraced by the people on the right who supported Donald Trump, including hating on Brian Kemp, and decided to run for office. And Brian Kemp had the last laugh on that. He lost. C.J. Pearson did. There's even like Charlie Kirk and TPUSA. I know a bunch of senior citizens who fund TPUSA thinking they put points on the board. I don't see any points being put on the board by TPUSA. Their outreach efforts, their door-to-door efforts. Charlie Kirk is living a very lavish lifestyle. He claims it's off of talk radio. As someone who's in talk radio, I can assure you he's not making that amount of money off of talk radio. I'm on more stations than he is, to my knowledge, and bigger stations at that. But TPUSA is making a killing. It's making a whole lot of money, enough that you can have a $5 million house in Arizona and a beach house in Florida. And what points are you putting on the board for the right? But he's young and he says conservative things. The worst thing about the right these days is the infatuation with celebrity. We got to have our celebrities. And the older people on the right platform young people on the right and make them celebrities, and more often than not, it winds up blowing up in our faces. You platform Candace Owens, and she starts questioning how the dinosaurs died and did the Jews do it. This gets me back to Jonathan Crone. He's unhappy with the right, doesn't like conservatives. There's clearly, I think, he now says he's bisexual. The social conservatism, obviously not a fit for him, given what it stands for. He's written very critically of it. But you know what? He was a 13-year-old, and when he decided to change his mind, he came out and said, you know what? I'm not that. And I respect the hell out of that, because you have a lot of people, you see it all over TV now, people who say, I haven't changed, the party's changed. No, dude, you've changed. Crone was willing to say, no, I've changed. I don't consider myself this anymore. A lot of people still say, no, I'm this, and the people who say they're this, they're not. No, you were pro-life and now you're pro-abortion. Look at Bill Kristol, who still considers himself a conservative. He's out there attacking Justice Thomas, who I was at an event where Bill and I were at for Justice Thomas's book, where we both got to hang out with Justice Thomas, and he loved the guy. I still love the guy. Bill's changed, not me. Bill says he's a conservative. No, you're something. You're not part of the conservative movement anymore. You know, I'm part of the conservative movement and don't care for Trump either. But first, I'm still standing on the issues and the positions I've had. I haven't abandoned those positions just because other people I may disagree with have those positions. I don't quite understand what's going on here, particularly with boomer culture on the right. But stop platforming crazy people. Stop platforming anti-Semites, and stop platforming the shiny and the young, thinking that there's something when they turn out to be something else. It gives the rest of us a bad name. Ultimately, what this comes down to is discernment. And my gosh, have so many people on the right lost the ability to discern what is tried and true and what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. And we need to get back to better discernment. And also, stop listening to people like Candace Owens.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, the real gift is this. And this. than this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, and you can be on the show. It is an open line Friday. Let's go to Mark. You're up next. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Eric. I have a question. If the Supreme Court overturns the Chevron doctrine, can Congress then stop the EPA from basically trying to do away with the gasoline engine? And if they are able to pass something, can the president veto it?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so whether the court decides to get rid of the Chevron doctrine or not, Congress can act, and they should, but the president could veto it. So Congress won't act. Republicans in Congress won't act unless Donald Trump gets elected. And then what they could do is run it through reconciliation, which bypasses the filibuster in the Senate. So now on this particular case, we're waiting for this case from the Supreme Court. Mark, I'm glad you brought it up. So the Chevron case is an old case from the 1980s that says essentially that the courts are bound by the reasonable interpretations of executive agencies in how they interpret vague congressional laws. John Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh have for years argued in district court roles and in appellate court roles and in their legal practice that Chevron was bad law or a bad court case because essentially it binds courts to interpretations of the executive branch of the legislative branch, and that's actually the court's job is to interpret it. And if Congress is writing vague laws, well, Congress can write clear laws. It's not the court's problem. And essentially the argument is the Chevron doctrine has allowed agencies broad latitude in taking poorly written laws and applying them, and that Congress should write better laws. So there's a case, it involves fishermen. Looper Bright is the name of the case. We're waiting on this decision. It should come out in the next couple of weeks. It will come out in the next couple of weeks before the end of June. And the Looper Bright case is whether or not the courts are bound by the Chevron case, or can the courts interpret laws themselves without relying on the regulators. In this particular case, Congress has restricted certain fishing in the North Atlantic. The Commerce Department decided the way to monitor the restrictions were to put inspectors on fishing boats. And when Congress did not appropriate money for those inspectors, the Commerce Department told the fishermen, you've got to pay for the inspectors yourselves, and you can't fish without an inspector. You must pay for the inspector, and the inspector's pay is more than what the fishermen make each year. So the fishermen are now making even less money because they got to pay to have inspectors on their boats, and Congress never said inspectors needed to be on the boats. That's what the bureaucrats decided to do. So Looper Bright may throw out the Chevron doctrine, and if so, that would actually be a good thing because it's always used by left-wing bureaucrats to expand their own power. Now, I want to expand your power to eliminate bad odors in your house with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You can get 3 of them, one for upstairs, one for downstairs, one for your basement, one for your RV, one for your travel bag. I am staying in an old bed and breakfast next week as I go to Louisiana to do the show from over there, and I'll have my Eden Pure with me. My sister reminded me, please take it because that place is musty. It'll wipe out the odors, smoke odors, litter box odors, pet odors, musty odors, you name it. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm wipes out those odors. You can get 3 of them. You can save $200. You go to EdenPureDeals.com. Eden, like the Garden of Eden. Pure as the driven snow. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code, you'll see it right there on the front of the site. Put in Eric3, E-R-I-C-K, and the number 3, no space, Eric3. You can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. They're air purifiers, so they get rid of the pollen and the dust. With electrostatic plates, you don't have to get a subscription to a filter. You just wipe it out on occasion, and they work to eliminate odors. They even use a USB outlet, so you can power it off your computer or a car outlet. You don't have to plug it into the wall, but you can do that as well. They're so flexible, so easy to use, you can hold them in the palm of your hand. EdenPureDeals.com, discount code ERIC3.
In the time it takes us to say, we're using Folgers Instant Coffee, seamlessly blended with water and ice. A splash of whatever kind of milk is your thing. And gotta get that caramel drizzle. All to make a toasty, roasty, caramel iced coffee. You could be enjoying it. Every damn sip of it. Damn right. It's Folgers Instant.
Hello and welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States. It's an open line Friday. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you'd like to be on the program, let's go to Brian. You're up next. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, Eric. You've been saying stuff like, this whole June debate that Biden's going to do is just, Democrats are going to use to get rid of him. I agree with you that they're not, because if he's not really in charge, his staff's not tricking him into getting out. They're going to lose their jobs. These folks want to have, the control and the power and the prestige that come with running a major presidential campaign and being in the next administration. And they're not part of any of the power circles like the Obamas or the Clintons. If Biden's out, then they're out.
Look, I think that's well said. As I have said, and for those of you who are just tuning in, you're wondering what Brian and I are talking about. I don't think the purpose of that early debate is to try to force Biden out. I think that's the conversation is going to amplify if he has a bad debate, but it's for damage control to allow time to pass. They don't want Joe Biden out of the race, and like Brian says, a lot of these guys, they want the power. They have the power with the vegetable in the office. They get all sorts of power. You put someone in who's actually got it together, they have less power. So, yeah, they will prop him up. They're essentially muppeting him. If you look closely, you see somebody's hand up his backside, moving his lips. Usually it's his wife. And that's not going to change. But it is going to be funny.
I think even Kamala Harris, I think she doesn't want him out, because I think she realizes her best chance to be president one day is to have him have to step down before his fourth term.
Yeah, Kamala's out there throwing marbles on the steps at the White House saying, look at your brains, Joe.
Yeah. Well, she wants him to get elected, and then she'll start throwing the marbles.
Yes. Yeah, look, here's where you and I may part ways a little bit, Brian, is I actually don't think the Democrats can replace Joe with anyone other than her. I think they're stuck.
You're probably right. You're probably right about that.
Can you imagine if they replaced Kamala Harris with like Pete Buttigieg, replacing the first black female vice president of the United States with another white gay guy would cause a revolt among the black women of America. The whole reason she's vice president is because Joe wanted to reward black women for helping him get elected. Yeah, that would wind up being bad. It would be hilarious, but it'd be bad. So they'd be stuck with Kamala Harris, and no one likes her. This, again, is why I think on the vice presidential pick, we all have people we like and dislike. I get that. Yesterday, I had a bunch of people call in. They didn't get on the air, but what about Vivek? What about I don't particularly care for Vivek for a lot of reasons, but regardless of my feelings on him, he's not on the list, and the reason he's not on the list is because Donald Trump believes, according to a bunch of reports and private conversations, that he doesn't check the boxes for what Trump needs. He needs money, or he needs a constituency group. Vivek supporters are going to vote for Donald Trump anyway. So you find someone, whether it's a Doug Burgum or J.D. Vance, who brings money, or a Tim Scott or Marco Rubio, who might bring some other votes. It's an interesting, fascinating juxtaposition. I just think Scott makes a lot of sense. Other people disagree, but there you have it. One more call before I get to what I want to talk about. John, you're up next. Welcome. Thanks for being patient.
Hello.
Hi there, John.
Yes, I just had a comment on race and or gender. Why don't we make it, or have Congress make it illegal to ask what race or gender you are? That way the playing field's totally even.
Look, I think we absolutely should do something like that. I don't know that Congress will ever do it. They should. The census and everything else. The Congress is obsessed with racial data. And it's not just the Democrats. The Republicans are obsessed with it as well, because Republicans want to be able to look at the numbers and say, look how much progress we've made. The Democrats want the numbers so they can say, look how much progress we haven't made. Both sides want it. I think we should. Of course, if we did that, then we would have a bunch of kids with generic names like Raz or something. Is that a boy or a girl? I don't know. It's Raz. Personally, I think if their name is Raz, we should wonder whether or not they got red hair and do something. Have a friend named Raz who's probably listening right now, y'all. Okay, we got to move on because I want to talk about this. So do you know who 50 Cent is? 50 Cent is a rapper, musician, music producer, pretty famous guy. He's from North Louisiana. He met with the Speaker of the House, and he's got conservative sensibilities. And it was a big deal that 50 Cent, a famous rapper, was on Capitol Hill and voiced his support for Donald Trump.
Have you made a decision?
I haven't.
Okay. What do you think is the significance?
Thank you.
Just the last question. What do you see as the significance of African American men in this election?
For both of you. I see them identifying with Trump.
Why do you say that?
Because they got RICO charges. And
I see them identifying with Trump because they got RICO challenges. That's 50 Cent, which Chelsea Handler, the washed-up female comedian, was on with, I think, Jimmy Fallon or one of the Jimmys, Fallon or Kimmel, and she's very upset about this.
And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So,
okay, so you have rich white woman Karen, an affluent white female urban liberal. So you've got an awful telling a black man you can't vote for Donald Trump because you're black. Hello, Jim Crow. Back in the turn of the 20th century, black people would go vote and they would have a white overseer there to make sure they voted the right way. It's one of the reasons there are laws like you're not allowed to post photographic evidence of your cast ballot online. Or you're not allowed to take pictures of a cast ballot because you're not supposed to be able to provide evidence of how you voted. Because back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, in the very early 60s, white people in the South would take black people to the polls, line them up, and make sure they voted the right way for the Democrat. Now you have left-wing Democrat Chelsea Handler telling black successful rapper 50 Cent, you can't vote for Donald Trump because you're black. It's what the Klan did. It's what the Democrats did in the early part of the 1900s. And for those of you who say, well, they became Republican, Google George Wallace and see where he wound up. An elected Democrat till the end of days. You know, Democrats are not handling very well the idea of a black man supporting Donald Trump. Over at MSNBC, they do this with the Supreme Court. They do this with Tim Scott. This is Joy Reid and Eli Mistel, who the white people of Comcast allow them to be on MSNBC. They're beholden to powerful white people and don't seem to even realize it.
Years. And what they're getting, just to link your last segment together, what they're getting is what Byron Donalds wants. What they're getting is Jim Crow, right? What they're getting is a guy like Clarence Thomas, who, like Byron Donalds, entire judicial philosophy is that, well, some Negroes are magic, right? And no matter what the white man does to us, we can just rise above as long as they don't shoot us or kill us or rape us or drown us.
You know, I realize I'm not just a white guy. I'm so white when I put on socks, they disappear. I realize that. But it is remarkable to me that here in the 21st century, there is an entire industry of leftists, particularly black leftists who get paid on MSNBC to tell black people what they have to think. And if you deviate from that, it must be your money. They don't have to combat the ideas. They don't have to even challenge the ideas or be challenged by the ideas. They just say, oh, somebody's paid off this person. Somebody's paid them off. Maybe it's because they're rich. They don't want to engage the ideas, so they cast pejoratives. And they seal clap for each other. And they maintain a level of victimology. I mean, that's the whole thing, whether it's Chelsea Handler or these clowns on MSNBC. The black people are the victims of a racist society, and the only people who aren't racist are the Democrats, who were the slave owners of the 1800s and the Jim Crow activists of the 1900s, but suddenly are pure as the driven snow on that, and all the bad Democrats became Republicans. Isn't it convenient how all the bad Democrats, except George Wallace and Robert Byrd and Lyndon Johnson, and the list goes on, all became Republican? Remarkable. Several people emailed me as well on Chelsea Handler. She and 50 Cent used to be an item. So she doesn't want to be in a relationship with the guy anymore, but she wants to tell him how he can and cannot vote because he's black. Really, the awfuls, the affluent white female urban liberals are the worst. Telling a successful black man, you can't vote for Donald Trump because you are black. Unbelievable. The amount of energy expended on MSNBC to talk down to black people, using black people to talk down to other black people, to tell them that you're a racist or you're perpetuating racism if you support Republicans. They've done this for so long, and frankly, they've been pretty successful at it. And now, because the polling suggests this shift is happening, they're very unhappy. There's been a series of polls that have come out post-conviction. And guess what's happening? Post-Donald Trump conviction, there's been no shift. In fact, young black men suggest increasingly that they're moving towards Donald Trump, and the left is freaking out about it. They don't know what to do other than to belittle young black men. That you whippersnappers don't know what you're doing. Listen to us, well-privileged mouthpieces of white society on MSNBC. Listen to us. Don't believe your eyes. Don't believe your ears. Don't believe your experience. You were safer when Donald Trump was president. There were less illegals taking your jobs when Donald Trump was president. You had less crime in your neighborhood when Donald Trump was president. You had a better job when Donald Trump was president. Your groceries cost less when Donald Trump was president. Your gas cost less when Donald Trump was president. You didn't have to worry about your water heater going away or your dryer going away or your dishwasher going away or your fossil fuel burning car going away when Donald Trump was president. You didn't have to worry about any of those things. And the world was not in chaos when Donald Trump was president. But they want you to believe that you were better off now than then. They want you to believe that Joe Biden, who for 50 years has said all sorts of racist things, including the N-word repeatedly, that Joe Biden is better. I find it very funny. One of the things that leaked out by the guy who's no longer under the non-disclosure agreement about The Apprentice is that Donald Trump one time used the N-word. We don't have that on video, but I could. I won't because I'd get fired if I did. But I could play you lots of videos of Joe Biden on tape using the N-word. But Donald Trump purportedly, we don't have it on tape, purportedly used it once. Pay no attention to Joe Biden and all the times he did. It's just funny how these people do not want young black men to think for themselves. I don't care if young black men vote for Donald Trump or not. It certainly give him an advantage in the polls. But these people deeply care that they better not. They don't want a young black man to think for himself and his experience in life. They want to tell him what to think and how to think and remind him that you're black so you can't vote Republican. Why not? Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and so was Frederick Douglass. Now, let me remind you that Hillsdale College wants your opinion on the presidential selection survey. A number of states, and they are mostly progressive states right now, they want to change how the president is selected and bind their state's vote to the popular vote. So if your state population and your state votes for Donald Trump, let's say, but the national popular vote goes to Joe Biden, well, your state would say it doesn't matter how our state's population voted, that nationally went for Biden, so the Electoral College has to go for Biden. They want to do it with an interstate compact. Congress allegedly would have to approve, but they're saying, no, we're just going to ignore that. We're just going to do it. Hillsdale College wants your position on that versus the regular Electoral College. Go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. And Hillsdale, which normally educates you, wants you to educate them on how you stand on the Electoral College. Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. go take the presidential selection survey from Hillsdale College today. Let them know what you think about the presidential selection process and whether or not you want any changes. It's also a great way for you to learn about Hillsdale College. They're a great institution. It's Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. It is an open line Friday, 877-973-7425. If you'd like to be on the program, John in Palm Cove, Florida, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good afternoon, Eric. I wanted to roll back to some of your opening comments about our military preparedness, basically comparing the Second World War to what we have now. During the Second World War, we had five-star generals. They were in command of over 11 million enlisted personnel. Today, we have 15 generals. There are no 5-stars anymore, but we have 15 of them. They have command over 355,000 in round numbers enlisted personnel. So, my opinion and my feeling is this. We won the Second World War because the Axis powers could not destroy our ability to produce machines of war. They couldn't bomb our shipping yards. They couldn't bomb our factories. They couldn't bomb our production of food, our railroads. Today, that's all changed with ICBMs. And I think the preparedness of our military, thanks to Obama, I can't see how we could win one major war, let alone a two-front war. I might ask.
Go ahead. Go on.
I might ask a question before you respond. I'm so concerned about the Constitution of the United States. How strong is this Constitution when we have people in government that violate it constantly and nothing happens to them? They get away with it over and over. It makes the Constitution seem like, just a rag that, you can use to your benefit.
Okay, so let me take that one first. I've got about a minute here before we go to commercial break. So let me take that one first. Elections have consequences, and you can get away with things way more when the Democrats control as much as they do, and the Republicans only have a 2-seat House. So Republicans, if those things matter to you so much, you need to actually find competent candidates who can win elections. And win those elections. And yes, you can still win elections in this country. Brian Kemp was able to defeat Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Yes, you can win elections in the states and change that. On the military, I'm concerned as well. However, I still think we have a better battle-hardened military than China, which hasn't been tested. And our supply chains and logistics for the military have improved dramatically. In World War II, the Germans outnumbered us in terms of military hardware and troops, but we were able to outmaneuver them through logistics, and we still have that capability.